Hi, and welcome to On the Sunny Side. On Forbes 15, the German edition of Forbes' new digital TV channel. I'm Sunny Grineveld. I'm an entrepreneur and a Forbes Under 30 list maker, and I'm excited to, on this show, welcome digital leaders from all disciplines, be it that they are researchers, entrepreneurs, executives. The thing that I'm interested in is how are they using technology for good, and how are they making sure that technology truly drives progress forward in our world? So today with me is Rahaf Harfoush. She's a New York Times best-selling author. She's a digital anthropologist and an executive director of the Red Thread Institute for Digital Culture. So Rahaf, welcome to the show.
Sunny, thanks for having me.
I'm very excited. I am a big fan of your books, and the most recent one, Hustle and Float, I think is a fascinating read. I'd like to get right into some of the topics that you discuss in Hustle and Float, but first, I always start with what I call Sunny's Fast Five, one sentence answers to 5 questions. Ready for that?
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. So easy starters. Are you a morning or night person?
Night person, for sure.
If I gave you a time machine and you could travel anywhere to any episode, where would you go?
Oh, that's a hard one. Maybe 2016, try to see if I could make any changes.
What is something you're learning right now?
I'm learning a lot about bot networks right now on social media, and about how misinformation is spreading through these very easy access to technologies.
Interesting one. I'll dive deeper later. But first, what does success mean to you?
Success to me is the alignment in terms of your personal and professional goals. It's having that balance in your life that makes sense.
And now in one sentence, what is Hustle and Float about?
Hustle and Float is about the stories we tell ourselves about who gets to be successful and what it takes to be successful, and how those stories can actually mess with our creative performance.
What motivated you, and I'd move away from the one sentence answers to really understanding a little bit more about Hustle and Float. What motivated you to write this piece of work?
So what Hustle and Float started because I was experiencing a bunch of burnout symptoms where I felt like I wasn't performing the way that I wanted to perform. And my answer at that time was, oh, I just wasn't doing enough. So I started to try and do more, work longer hours, wake up earlier, stay later, not take care of myself in a certain way. I tried to devote every free minute that I had to working and to performing and to creating content and researching. But the more and more I worked, the worse my performance got, the more tired I got, the worse my health got, the worse my concentration and focus got. And I was really confused because a lot of the advice we hear about productivity these days was about just push harder, just do more, just hustle, just, it's all about these things about, well, if you're not successful, then it must be because you're not doing enough. And as a somewhat reasonably educated person, I was like, well, this doesn't really make a lot of sense. Why are we getting these messages when the messages are negatively impacting the performance? And so I started just asking why. Where did this idea that we have to work nonstop come from? When did we start linking productivity with success? When did we start telling each other that any time not spent doing something productive was wasted time? And so it ended up becoming this 3-year research project where I explored the historical context. So like the Industrial Revolution, how we talked about work back then. I looked at biology and neuroscience and how our brains are wired. I looked at the media and how the stories we tell about people who are successful. Look at the people we hold up on pedestals and say, we should be more like this person. And how all of these forces, as I call them, just create a narrative that celebrates overwork, but in a way that fundamentally harms creativity. And in a nutshell, what I realized is that we have to reframe high performance, and we have to say to people, intentional recovery and intentional periods of rest doesn't take you away from achieving those big goals. It's actually an essential part of the process of reaching those goals. And that, to me, as somebody that is very ambitious, it forced me to change the way that I think about my creative resources and my energy and my goals.
So, I mean, I think hustle and float, for all the reasons that you mentioned, was, prior to COVID-19, there are all these challenges around how we think about productivity and how we consider every minute that we're not productive to be wasted times. But now with COVID-19, I think so much of the working world and our approach has sort of been, what used to work just doesn't seem to work anymore. There are way fewer boundaries, for example, between work and life. It's become just all one big mix of working and living and children and family. And how do you hustle and float, and particularly float, during these curious and special times?
I mean, it's funny. I don't think people, I'm not going to tell you the hows, because I think everybody out there knows that they should, be resting, and they should be taking care of themselves, and they should. And, a friend of mine always says, you shouldn't should all over people. So I'm not going to tell you, what you should do. What I'm going to tell you is that it would be a good exercise to spend time asking yourself the why. So one of the exercises that I always give clients is I tell them, here's what I want you to do. I want you to open up your calendar, and I want you to find a 15-minute block of time that you're going to put in your calendar. And during this 15 minutes, you're just going to sit there. I don't want you to meditate. I don't want you to focus on your breathing. I don't want you to clear your mind. I literally just want you to sit there and let your mind wander. No phones, no screens, no stimulation. Just sit there and be bored for 15 minutes. And go and commit to doing this. And the thing is that's not the real exercise. The real exercise is they never do it the first time around. And the real exercise begins in asking yourself, okay, well, now tell me why you didn't. Because in not doing that 15 minutes, you're signaling that you fundamentally, on some level, don't prioritize recovery time. So I can't make you do anything. You have to feel like it's an important part of your performance. So for COVID, you have to be really clear about intentional recovery is an essential part of maintaining your sanity. We're working nonstop. Our brains are constantly in these anxiety loops around news and information and statistics and all of these things. That's very draining. And the only way to recover from that is to give your entire body and your brain a chance to just unwind, even if it's just 15 minutes. But if you're not going to take 15 minutes out of an entire day, if you're too busy or there's not enough time or you think it's dumb, well, all of those reasons just signal that you're not prioritizing rest. And that's the question you have to answer. Because once you value and prioritize rest, you understand that taking 15 minutes every 2 to 3 hours of destimulation makes you happier, calmer, less anxious, and more productive.
So I'm really curious, as the audience is watching, if anyone's actually going to take those 15 minutes, and if they do, to please leave a comment below in the comment section of this YouTube video. So we'll check back, Rahaf. Yeah, you promised me we're going to go to the comments, and we're going to hashtag it with what?
Hashtag it with the Fushi 15. And
all
that's
right.
The challenge that I put on Instagram as well. And come back, tell me why you did it. Tell me if you did it and how hard it was and how long 15 minutes felt. It felt like 3 hours, somebody said to me. They did it and they said it felt like it was 3 hours and it was so hard and uncomfortable. And then start asking yourself, why is it so uncomfortable? Why is this so hard? Why do I not want to do this? Where is my resistance coming from? And that will help you take ownership of your own creativity. Because if you're like me, so many people, and myself included, I treated my creativity and my energy like it was something that was never going to run out. Like I could just abuse it and mine it and take as much of it as I want and never have to worry about it running out, until one day it did run out. And that's when I realized you have to strategically replenish it. If you're a creative worker, if you're a knowledge worker, you have to take care of your most precious resource, which is your ideas and your creativity and your mental awareness. So that's my 15.
Awesome. I'm going to commit to do the Fushi 15. And
Yes.
the lesson that you just mentioned, I actually learned being a long distance runner. And you think you can run forever when you start a marathon, but you can't. And that's what you learn sort of usually by kilometer 21, 22, you're like, all right, I'm halfway there and I feel like I want to be finished, within 5 minutes and I can't. Still double time ahead of me. So Fushi 15, I'm committing.
I've never run a marathon, but like, I assume, tell me, when you're running, do you have different paces for different miles? Is that how it works?
Well, you try to actually, like, if you really want to succeed, like a successful marathon is not so much for me about the time. It's much more about being able to run the second half faster than you ran the first half.
Ooh.
And it's really hard to do. And I've rarely actually succeeded at it because it means that you're so good at managing your energy that you understand how to keep the energy high towards so much that you've managed to really keep it high till the very end. And it's one thing I always challenge myself with, and it's a tough one. So that's how I try to go about it. But I was supposed to run the New York Marathon this year. It's probably going to be tough to do. But I'll keep at it. And right now I've resorted to virtual fitness challenges. So,
wow.
Speaking of the virtual world, I think, in many ways we do spend a lot more time in the virtual world. And then in Hustle and Float, you talk a lot about, also the challenges that brings, being sort of sucked into social media and a lot of digital distractions. And a lot of your research also, I think it even started with Beyonce. Came through the internet and through some of the articles that are widely shared on social media. How do you think we're spending more time now on the digital world, all of us, as we're stuck at home. Is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? What do you think of it?
I think it can be either really good or really bad, right? So the thing that we have to remember from a cultural perspective is like social media and the stuff that we're consuming is culture. So everything that you consume, whether it's a meme or a photo of an influencer or an article, that they're like little building blocks that are informing your worldviews and what you believe. So if you constantly follow, say, influencers who I call like productivity propagandists, like if they're always the one that are like, don't sleep and wake up at 4 a.m. and if you're tired, you just need to push harder. Like if you just see those pop up on your feeds enough, eventually that is going to inform how you think about success and how you think about work ethic and how you think you should be. So everything that you consume is impacting your worldview. So is this good or bad? Well, if you have intentionality, if you say, I'm going to be really intentional about what I consume because I would like my worldview to be, fact-based, to be transparent, to be ethical, to be well-rounded. If you have like those clear parameters, then I think all of this content on the internet can be incredibly powerful. You can learn so much and connect with great people and see very smart ideas. But if you're not aware of it, then you let the algorithm determine your worldview. And the algorithm doesn't care if you have a balanced worldview. The algorithm just cares that you spend as much time on the platform as possible. So the question is always who is in control of the content that you're consuming? If you're in control of it, I think there's never been a better time to be connected and to learn and to collaborate with others. But I really worry about the people that don't even give it a second thought. And then suddenly they're seeing content that gives them a filter bubble, which no longer reflects reality.
Thank you, Rahaf, for such an insightful interview and conversation. I have, in closing, just 3 questions where I'd love to have your advice for me, but mainly also for my audience. Question number 1, what's a movie or documentary that during this COVID-19 pandemic you really enjoyed watching?
I am really loving the Netflix series, The Last Dance, about the 1997 Chicago Bulls championships. And I'm going to preface this by saying I'm not a sports person at all, but the whole documentary is really a documentary about high performers, about teamwork, about strategies around success. It's been such a fascinating insight into the psychology of performance, and I have just been devouring it. I love it. It's so interesting.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm a basketball player. I played for 10 years and I can
Wow.
so support that. I think it's a phenomenal recommendation. Second question. What about someone who you'd love to see me ask onto the sunny side? What's someone you think is worth following and also potentially worth interviewing?
Oh, there are so many people. That's a hard one. Um, I actually think I have a good friend that I should introduce you to. His name is Kane Sarhan. He has a company called The Well that's very much focused on creating like a holistic view of wellness. So that really is and I think it's so important how little we sometimes understand about our own, whether it's our hormones or our attention spans or our energy or our blood or, our digestive system, and how all of this is interconnected. I think it's being friends with him and being a part of his community, I've learned to pay attention so much to the mind-body connection, which I think sometimes being always in my head all the time, it's important to remember to have that communication. So I think that, and I will put you in contact with them. I think that would be a
Awesome.
fantastic conversation.
Thank you. And I look forward to that. And last one, what's a piece of parting advice that you'd like to share with the audience? What's one thing that they should take away from this?
That disruption is always like an external factor. It's something that happens to you, but how you respond, I believe that every disruption brings tremendous opportunities, and it's about that intentionality. So there's never been a better time to be of service to your community, to connect with friends, to add good in the world. And I think just consuming content is no longer enough. The world really needs all of us right now to step up and actively contribute to each other. And so like now is the time that we can really showcase our ability to connect and build community.
Raf, thank you so much for such a wonderful closing line. I absolutely agree. Thank you for providing your insights and taking the time to be with me on the sunny side. And yeah, it's just such a pleasure to every time when we do get to meet, learn more about your worldview and some of the insights. I can warmly recommend reading Hustle and Float, and I look forward also to doing the 15 minutes hashtag Fushi15 challenge after this show.
I'm going to follow
if we
you on
all
that.
do it, so this will be streamed at 4 p.m. on Thursday. This show every week. After this particular episode, I am going to do these 15 minutes, and then at 5:30 p.m. today, the editor-in-chief Klaus Fiala of Forbes will be interviewing Miriam Staub-Bisang. She's the CEO of BlackRock Switzerland. Super interesting conversation. So there's a good amount of time to take those 15 minutes. I'm going to be sharing my experience in the comment section, and I hope some more of you will too. And with that, looking forward to see you next time, Thursday, 4 p.m. Central European Time here on the Forbes 15 YouTube channel. Thank you so much, and see you next week on the sunny side.